constantly repeating and saying to you, the worst recession since the 1930s. It became a course. And they buckled under the pressure of being able to deliver to barbarians. They disappointed in their performances. They're excited with their propaganda. So I know that I don't want to come here tonight to tell you in Whim to close your ears to misinformation, fake news, and propaganda. We will deal with proof based upon performance, based upon service, based upon the life choices that are being made by you, for you, with you, by this barbarous Labour Party administration. But perhaps, because of the folly and the stupidity of the day, I started perhaps where I ought not to have started. But like any good artisan, the plumbers, the carpenters, the masons, who for quite a while they couldn't do work, even if there were projects that were about to start, COVID-19 inhibited them. The protocols and all the various things that had to go in to ensure the safety of them, the safety of their families, and the safety of the society. And may God have mercy. There are some of us that lost relatives and close ones and friends. And we pray that there's a place in heaven for them. But let us render unto Caesar what is Caesar, and unto God we shall render what is God. And I say all praise and praise to God for giving us the type of leader we had in Barbados for the last 3.5 years. A woman who is caring, a woman who walked all these streets with Edmund Hinkson in St. James North, and also the highways and byways in this Barbados, to understand what were your needs, what were the things you wanted. She put it in a manifesto. She set aside priorities. She spoke about a mission critical. And in that mission critical, you all saw what happened between May 2018 and March 2020. She and the Barbados Labour Party team delivered. They either delivered in full or they delivered part of the way, most of the way, until global pandemic struck, coronavirus. I can tell you, we need to start by understanding ourselves and understanding the people we interact with. Years ago, there was my good and dear friend, Edmund. for you. He represents you. Whether it is in terms of ensuring that you have the appropriate infrastructure, whether it is he was part of the fight that guaranteed you, your children, and those who are coming along now could have tuition-free education at the university, can have opportunity.
Hands together and lifted the heavy weight. And you know, and I know, that this is unprecedented times for Barbados. This ain't just global recession. This goes beyond that. This goes to the very thing that makes you move. And you know what? This enemy that came uninvited is an enemy we cannot see. An invidious enemy. An that would take away not just your taste and smell, not just give you the cough and the flu. It is an enemy that takes life. It is costly. It is burdensome. In terms of the country and the economy, it did, in a worse way, what the Dems did to our treasury. And I will never accuse the Dems of robbing the treasury, but I know for sure they left it bankrupt or near bankrupt with a Barbados dollar on the verge of devaluation because they had an indecisive leader. You had a minister of finance that the place he occupied was way too big for him. And you had a group of people who was more about self-interest than the interests of the people. And that is precisely why Barbados' reputation became sordid and dirty. That is why we experience over 20 downgrades from all financial institutions who check on these things. And to put measures in place, they knew the act and right thing to do, given that every year Barbados has to pay its own money into the IMF, so they're part of it. You have to get your particular born rights, to get your quota. You have to pay your money. We've been paying money, but they were too timid, too ashamed, and guess what? Too coveted. I think I heard somebody in the background say, too light-fingered. Too light-fingered. So they weren't interested in you. They were interested in taking what they can get for themselves. And it was, and I'm not telling a lie, you know. This was the very direction given to them in January 2000, when it was in January. Anyway, as I told a group where I spoke tonight down in St. James South, I pray for his protection and during his incarceration, and that he will come back to Barbados without bangles and be able to at least contribute to the society in a meaningful way, and that he would enjoy some of the sweets that left this country by fair and often foul means, but what Mayor Mortley and her team were able to replenish by dint of hard work and industry. Yes. Yes. Had not what happened in March the 17th, 2020, and continuing up to now, and is expected to continue for some time to come, except for that coronavirus, we were well set to totally transform in this country. But you know what?
the leader of the Barbados Labour Party, the leader of this country, the leader that the people... I haven't told you all, I was working for CARICOM for 15 straight months as a consultant to the CSME. And whenever I interact from people across this region, across the Caribbean, all they tell me is that they wish Mia Motley was their leader. They see Mia Motley as the leader of the CARICOM. And there's a year now she has not been the chairman of CARICOM. And she has to wait her turn. It will come later in the second term. She will wait her turn. But the people in the region perceive her as a legitimate regional leader. And then when we step beyond and we go to the international shores, they look to me, they listen to me, they clap hands for me, they hold the most powerful man in the world, that image of him, holding Mia Motley's hand in terms of appreciation for things boldly said, well said, and truthfully said. An exceptional leader. And if I may, let me put in a plug for a special group of persons we have in the Barbados Labour Party. And this is not to take away from Edmund, because Edmund respects them, they respect Edmund. But I want all Barbados to recognize that motherhood, womanhood, and love and charity take us a long way. There are two people besides my children I know, as there's a God above, I will give my life for. Two, at least two. At least two. One is my mother who gave birth to me. But one is the mother that mothers me from the time I was 6, 7 years old. Because my mother that gave birth to me was in England. So when we have people, and I wrote a big column about it when Mara Thompson did it about 4 years ago, the year preceding the general election, and she wanted to throw darts and spikes at Mia Motley, and in doing so, she disgusted the women of Barbados that never bore children, and she disgraced herself and her political party. And you know what? Based on what I am seeing and hearing, the Democratic Labour Party does not yet recognize that we are now living in a world where we do not tolerate those things. The women in Barbados are builders as well. They work and sit side by side, alongside. And right now in Barbados, we have a group of women that can be considered some of the very best any part of the world or the universe. A prime minister, a president, and I could go on, and they're exceptional. And they care more about the children than the last Democratic Labour Party government. Because if the last Democratic Labour Party government had cared so much about children, they wouldn't stop so many of the community building programs that they did stop. They wouldn't kick down the ladder for educational growth. In fact, if they were smart enough and could prioritize, what they would have done is easily shift away from some of the wastage that they did and put things in programs that at least could give the next generation that head start that they needed to compete in what it has become a very competitive world. They failed to do that. They hurt and damaged the legacy of El Bar. But yet in 2022, right now, perhaps as I speak, they're on platforms pump-setting and parading about how much they like children and how much they did for children, and how much they respect women that got children, and how they put food on tables. They ain't put one damn thing on no table except the court papers that saw DI, and those are the initials, end up in a jail in the United States of America. I said DI because I'm going to just use one initial. I said D. Some of you might tell me he dead, but David could have gone there too. And it's truth. It is not a lie. It is not a lie. It is not fictitious. There is no need for us in the Barbados Labour Party to descend to the depths that law goes. And law will remain law. And I can say it. I first met his father in London about 4 years ago. 4 or 5 years ago. And his father told me, I will go to Barbados because he's a minister. I don't even want to see the man. He told me so. And I got evidence and proof. But if your son reach as a member of parliament, supposed to be representing people, holding a ministry, I know that you all will be proud. But his father was not proud of him because he understands the nature of the character. A man whose values are so low that nomenclature becomes appropriate. He is low. Ladies and gentlemen, what the Barbados Labour Party brings to you is not perfection. The Barbados Labour Party does not bring perfection to you. But what it does, it brings a passion to serve. Whether quietly like Edmund Hinkson, or perhaps more vociferously like some others. There are others that are more vociferous. We are all different. We all use our talents differently. But what we do in the Barbados Labour Party, we put our hands, our brains, our intellects together because we know it is about people-centered development. And what the manifesto, the 2022 manifesto promises you now, it promises you people-centered development and transformation. I may be dead and gone in 10, 15, 20 years. I may be. But I know, I trust in my heart that some of you will be here. And the work of the Edmund Hinksons and the Mia Mortleys and the Santia Bradshaw, who I vote for and will vote for and will repeatedly vote for, these caring individuals, I know that they will leave the types of edifices, buildings, people of growth that have developed in every sense of the word, so that their children would have something to boast and brag about and say pride and industry does mean something. Being firm craftsmen or a faith does mean something. Being a republic does mean a lot to me. I can achieve. And that's one of the things that Mayor Motley promised you, you know, in 2018, in the lead up to the general election and during the canvassing and the platform before election day. One of the things that she told persons all across Barbados, it wasn't something that you're going to measure immediately, but she told you, I shall return hope to you, the people of this country. Because without hope, there's nothing. Without hope, you languish. You languish in a place where the Dems are leaderless, rudderless, no sense of direction, depending on serendipity. So if the wind is blowing from there, you're going that way. And if it comes from that way, you're going the next way. You know not where your sail will take you. But not under the Barbados Labour Party. Under the Barbados Labour Party, we've seen caring but practical leadership. So that when they had to make adjustments in terms of debt repayments, debts that increased without any visual sight of what the Dems had done, except the fact that the Treasury was practically broke and sewage was flowing across the streets of the South Coast and in Bridgetown too. Mia Motley and her team, thanks to people like Abrams, they helped repair a reputation that was severely tarnished and damaged by Dems that did not care about anybody besides themselves. We have to keep it real. Yes, Mia Motley has charisma, exceptionally intelligent. When she speaks, everybody listens. But, you know, God gave us a warning. He wasn't perhaps speaking about me at the time, but we can associate the message to Mia. Those who have ears to hear, let them hear. I'm saying to you tonight here in the Whim, there can be no other choice. Realistically, not if you want to safeguard yourselves, your families, your friends, your communities, your society, and your nation. You have to. You must. I implore you, I beg you, I beseech you to go on January 19th and vote for Edmund Gregory Hinkson in St. James North. No ifs, and buts, maybes, or whys. The why is in the tasting. The proof of the pudding is in tasting. In 3.5 years, Edmund Hinkson, alongside the Barbados Labour Party team led by the astute leadership of Mia Motley, has done more than Fandel did in his 8 years and David Thompson did in his first 2. That is why the reference to a lost decade is as accurate as you could ever want it to be. I tell no lie. Why should I? Look, I see persons react and respond to the fact and ask the question. The Dems push the whole notion of the misinformation. But they ask, how could this woman say she's caring and call an election during a pandemic? The way the Dems and Furla, the way they have spoken about it, you know, if you need to read newspapers and go on your smartphone and surf the net, you know, you all would think that Barbados is the only country in this region, in this hemisphere, or in the world that has had elections in the last 2 years. And that is the silliness and the folly. But what Miss Motley has insisted, she said, look, the Democratic Labour Party, they are desperate. There's a current thrust among themselves, and they do not have the people at heart in Barbados. They try to see who can snatch gold. If you want to call them gold snatchers, I would say they snatch a lot of gold from Barbados, so the Morley administration had a lot less gold to buy the things that Barbadians need. But nonetheless, they've got rid of long-serving members, general secretaries included. There are some persons that don't want to see them. Verla's making a plea up to yesterday. Come back, come back, come back. We settle our differences, come back. But why should they? Why should they? Particularly women. Why should they? You only go back if you believe in misogyny, if you're a sadist, and you want to be whipped again, like how Frandel, Stewart, and Sinclair, and Eswick, and Innes, I could call the bunch Seeley, how they whip you. They whip you into such a state of oblivion that your choice at the polls the last time was easy. And I'm saying, if you give them the opportunity, they'll whip you again. And it won't be just education that can get kicked away from you. It will be health. Barbados dollar won't worth what it got, what it's worth now. Some of them in building big mansions, they send the money overseas. But the thing is, they can't go for it. They're frightened to pass through the United States of America. To this day, and what I speak is fact, comes straight out of the mouth of a former Dem minister who would have nothing to do with the current crop of Dems. I can't call his name. But if they want to challenge me, I could defame me. That is what it's about. It is about being practical. Tough and hard decisions have to be made by leaders. Frandel Stewart, I don't know what kind of leader he was, but he was indecisive. On every opportunity, he was indecisive. And I was once told, about 30 years ago, a man of indecision cannot get started and a man of decision cannot be stopped. You can't stop me. They ain't not stopping me. They ain't not stopping Edmund Hinkson. As Owen Arthur used to say, if there's a problem and you find the problem, face it and fix it. And that is what the Barbados Labour Party has been doing. Don't always get it right. It is not a perfect institution. It is not a perfect government. Perfection is with God. But every day we strive to become perfect. And particularly perfect in delivering to the people. With a dedication, a passion, a commitment to service. That is what the Barbados Labour Party stands for. Because at the end of the day, it has to be prosperity for all. And in this manifesto, as part of the transformation that the Barbados promises you to start working on for the next 5 years, part of that is ensuring that there's opportunity for all. There must be opportunity. It has to be people-centered transformation. It has to be getting the groups, and that is one of the reasons again for calling an election now. We cannot allow the divisiveness and the mischief and the misstatements deliberately done on some programs, particularly when that man Maloney or Baloney, or Maloney talking Baloney, something so, is on radio. Because they give a lot of fake news. It is about deception. Abracadabra. I, the magician from the Democratic Labour Party. So because I, the magician from the Democratic Labour Party, I can fool all of them to return it home. No. We've seen through the veil of that deception. Mia Morley and her team has seen through that deception. We will not allow you to be deceived. If you have ears to hear, you should hear. What the Dems did to this country between 2008 and 2018 cannot be forgiven in one term, should not be forgiven in 2 terms, and possibly not forgiven in 3 terms. There has to be a total generational shift. There has to be a total attitudinal shift. And we don't see the attitudinal shift when you hear law on the platform, or when you hear pit bull barking, or when you hear a woman talking about who's despotic, but at the same point in time, she can't get it right and want to lead a country. Which country she wants to lead? Not Barbados. Not my Barbados. As I told you all, I spent the last few weeks in England. I just came back from England Friday evening. And for any time I open my mouth, people say, "You a Bajan? You from Barbados?" I say, "Yes." And you know what? I know on previous visits, the first 2 things that ever used to come out of a person's mouth when they hear I'm a Barbadian, they used to say, "Gary Sobers, cricket," or they used to say, "Me, Rihanna, I'm excited." No. They say, Mia Motley, global leader. Okay, I understand that it is time for me to wrap up. But I love St. James North. And if I love St. James North and I'm not the representative, how much more does Edmund Hinkson care and love you? Charity begins at home. Start in your house. Start with your friends. But whatever you do, ensure that all of you wear your mask, observe the protocols, but go and vote for Edmund Gregory Hinkson, a man committed to your social development, to your empowerment, to your good health and your prosperity, to moving us to our next level alongside his team members and his leader in the safe, caring, and practical Mia Amor Motley. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for inviting me. Have a wonderful day. Put your X next to Edmund Hinkson. Don't let it touch. Don't spoil the vote. Every vote counts. And remember, whatever happens, we want 70% plus. 70% plus in St. James North. Plus 70% of all voting persons in the other 29 constituencies. We're winning by 70% of the popular vote in Barbados. Ladies and gentlemen, good night and thank you.
Be ready for elections and be voting Edmund Hinkson. Elections will be reached at the poll. By Edmund Hinkson we placing VX. There we go. Edmund Hinkson be voting in the best. When we reach by the poll, by Edmund Hinkson we placing VX. Here we go. Edmund Hinkson be voting in the best. Oh yes, cast your X. We voting Edmund Hinkson, yes. Oh yes, cast your X. We ready for election, yes. Oh yes, cast your X. We voting Edmund Hinkson, yes. Oh yes, oh yes, oh yes, oh yes. But I never see a man for the people so yet. Willing to put in hard work and sweat. He full of integrity against corruption in the party. The man about the truth, developing the youth. Helping those with disabilities. That's Hinkson philosophy. Helping those with disabilities. Caring for you and me. Helping those with disabilities. That's Hinkson philosophy.
St. James North, you have a lot to think about. I began tonight by asking you, Why should you vote for Edmund Hinkson and the Barbados Labour Party? BLP family, St. James North, all of you present in the Whim and streaming online, please put your hands together and welcome to the platform the BLP candidate for St. James North, who with your help will be for a third-time return to Parliament as the representative for St. James North. Please put your hands together for Mr. Edmund Hinkson.
Edmund Hinkson replacing me for election. Hinkson voting in the best. Election reach for the channel. Edmund Hinkson replacing me. Let me go. Edmund Hinkson be voting in the best. When we reach for the poll, by Edmund Hinkson replacing the X. Let me go. Edmund Hinkson be voting in the best. Oh yes, yes your X. We voting Edmund Hinkson, yes. Oh yes, yes your X. Ready for the election, yes. Oh yes, yes your X. We voting Edmund Hinkson, yes. Oh yes, oh yes, oh yes, oh yes. But I never see a man for the people so yet. Willing to put in hard work and sweat. He full of integrity against corruption in the party. The map of the truth, developing the youths. Helping those with disabilities. That's Hinkson philosophy. Helping those with disabilities. Caring for you and me. Helping those with disabilities. That's Hinkson philosophy. Helping those with disabilities. Caring for you and me. Elections when we reach out the poll. By Edmund Hinkson replacing me.
Good night, the good people of the Whim, and indeed the great people as well of all of St. James North. This is, of course, the launch of our campaign in the air in St. James North in this election. I just spoke on behalf of Peter Phillips in St. Lucie, and it is a proud moment to start our spot meetings in the Whim. I, of course, as you all know, I have a final say on aspects of my campaign, and I said that we're going to start in the Whim. I love the Whim. It is one of my favorite areas in this constituency. Lovely, picturesque. A lady here who is wrapped up, and I told her, you're feeling cold. She said, oh boy, real cold, but I mean, this is the kind of breeze that you have out here. The people are warm. It is regrettable, of course, that we have not had cricket for the better part of 2 years, or two years now, on this pasture. You all know that I used to come here regularly. It is also regrettable that we have not had the challenge as I had intended every year between the Whim and Sion Hill in cricket. I mean, I still have the shirts that we were to give out and the trophies to the winning team and best cricketer on the day and all of that when we were to have the challenge in return on the last Saturday in March 2 years ago. But remember, COVID came, and that is the exact weekend, I believe it was, that the lockdown started. But God is good, and I know that we will be able to recommence our sports. That is so important to this community. I will always remember, of course, the Sunday at Kensington Oval when the Whim cricket team won a trophy, and I was part of that. And I have the picture still, I believe. There's also a picture on that afternoon in the pavilion there as well. But I'm here, of course, first to thank the Whim immensely for having the confidence in me, especially on the last occasion, to be your representative. I'm fully aware, of course, knowing the history of politics in St. James North and in Barbados on the whole, that the Whim has not always at all been supportive of the party of which I'm a member and under the banner of which I run. But I think that the people of the Whim have grown over the 9 years that I've been your representative to respect me as an individual. Nothing to do with political party, no, but to respect me as an individual. And one of your main members, and I'm not going to call names, when we had the meeting here on the last occasion in the Whim, as I arrived, he told me, but you winning 80% of the vote up here. And I looked at him, and yes, we won this box by 75%, and I know that the Whim would have been the main support. We would not have got as many votes in terms of percentage in Aston Hall as in the Whim. And the Whim was the reason why we were able to get 75% in this box, which is traditionally the strongest DLP box. And it shows that you have confidence in me. I hope that I have justified your confidence. I would have campaigned here less than 2 months ago with Horace. Mainly, I think Horace was with me on 3 of the afternoons, going house to house, meeting you, totally unaware that there was going to be an election here, and I would be standing on a platform today asking for your vote again and your confidence again next week, Wednesday, as demonstrated by your ex at the polling station there in All Saints, a few hundred meters away. But it has been a pleasure, it has been a distinct honor serving you as your representative and serving the people of St. James North over the last 9 years. I have done my utmost best. You know, my family tell me sometimes that I love the people of St. James North, my constituents, more than I love them. The fact of the matter is, yeah, I went into politics when, elective politics that is, when my children were big. My daughter, who is well known in St. James North among a lot of people, she was 2021 when I was elected. My son was 17, going on to 18. And in fact, both of my children are overseas now. Son living in America, daughter has gone up to America for 3 months on an internship. Both of them left last week. So I have no hindrance, and I did that when they were big because I felt that I had to be in a position to put my 200% into representation. I couldn't do that with my children young. And indeed, I have continued and offered myself to you as your representative for a 3rd time, because I believe that I still have it in me to serve at my best, to serve at my greatest capacity, and with the experience of 9 years behind me, and quite honestly, knowing about what, 98% of the members of this constituency, by first-hand name, by second name, where you live, who your family. I call you on your birthday, I know whose birthday it is, you know, I know where your child going to school, how old your grandchild is, that your daughter had a baby recently, that your mother may not be going through a good time physically. You know, that is the intimate relationship that we have had, including the people here in the Whim. And, you know, I could not certainly walk away and leave the people of St. James North in limbo at this time, and had to continue to be in Parliament to fight on your behalf so that I can be part of a people-centered government under Mayor Amor Motley, and with my colleagues to serve you, to improve your lives, to continue improving your life, in spite of course, the challenge of COVID and everything else. So we have certainly done our best. We have had life and work skills programs every other year in this constituency, including some from the Whim have gone, on these, whereby we create the situation for young people to improve their self-esteem, to be able to team work, to be able to know how to present yourself at a job interview, and generally to be able to problem solve, to increase your critical thinking power, all these basic skills that are required for young adults to be able to survive and to prosper in this world. And some of these concepts are not adequately addressed in our educational system, traditional educational system as it is, which may concentrate a lot more on academics and technical skills, but not on these softest life skills that are required for survival. We also, of course, conducted literacy programs, remedial literacy programs among primary school students last year, and that was in August, and that was highly appreciated by those who attended. We know that in the times where our economy has been under stress, our public finances, donations of school tablets has been key, because the Ministry of Education, with the best will in the world, has not been able to finance fully the tablets that are required for online learning by every school child, school having been physically not possible over the last 2 years, or most of it. And I mean, the government is committed to seeing how best we can get children back into school, because we understand fully the trials and tribulations of parents in having to monitor their children and help them in online schooling. It is not ideal at all. Children are supposed to be out there mixing, socializing, playing with each other, team working, increasing their social skills, and gaining friends, and that hasn't been happening. And that is probably, certainly one of the biggest regrets of COVID, and is one of the greatest adverse effects of the advent of COVID. Basic necessities has had to be nurtured within the last 2 years, and donation of food vouchers has been key, because food is a basic necessity. I never would have thought that a lot of the resources would have had to be spent in food vouchers to people, but that's how it has been. And of course, all of you all know that I don't only give food vouchers at Christmas like a lot of politicians do, but it's continuously throughout the year. And that has been, I think, one of the main aspects that we have done. And of course, as you know, I don't only give to individual households, I give to all the churches. Every year, all the churches in my constituency receive financial assistance in one form or another, whether it's actual money or food vouchers for the churches as well, to give to those vulnerable persons within the community of their church. Non-governmental organizations, community organizations, because a politician, a government can't do everything in itself, and we have assisted in technical ways, in financial ways, these organizations too. Of course, we've helped in terms of constituents who are starting up their own business, which is very important now, because this constituency, with 85% of the households, certainly pre-COVID, having at least one member who works in the tourist industry, has been crippled in a lot of ways immediately after COVID, with a lot of those workers being made redundant, with hotels closing, the tourists not coming, obviously the beaches closed, no water sports, no tourists here to shelter from the side of the road, the entertainment industry gone, people who used to be part of that, stores closing in Speightstown, in Town and otherwise, so people being sent home because, you know, people have nowhere to go, so the ladies not buying as many clothes as they used to. Of course, hairdressers suffering too, because again, the ladies have nowhere to go, no festivities, so you're not spending money with the hairdresser, and all of this has had a tremendous impact on this community. But we have to find a way. We are resilient people, and therefore, I have been part of the, at constituency level, of the government's visionary program to establish the trust fund through the Ministry of Small Business and Entrepreneurship, giving seed money to people who want to start their own business or continue up to $5,000. And the trust fund has funded hundreds of people and given them that facility, and not only given them the finance, but provided the technical skills and how to improve your customer service, how to manage your business, how to market your business, all of that. This Barbados Labour Party government has done in the 3 years, 8 months that we have been in office. And I have been, of course, part of that. We are therefore asking for the opportunity to continue. 3 years, 8 months has been a short period, not a full term. The Prime Minister, in her wisdom, and as she is constitutionally authorized to do, has called an election. We therefore have not been able to do everything that we had planned to do in the 5 years, and that is totally understandable. In addition to that, of course, we have been sidetracked by COVID and our efforts successfully to keep everyone who is here tonight alive. All right, and that has taken a tremendous task. It's taken a lot of money and resources, and therefore we have not been able, regrettably, to repair the roads that I would have loved to repair in this constituency, loved to, in Aston Hall, for instance, and in Roadview, to just give 2 examples. But those roads are scheduled, among other roads, Rotunda, for instance, to be repaired. But you have to give us a chance, and of course, we not only had COVID, which, in my opinion, we managed tremendously well, much better than large developed countries manage COVID. We have kept down the numbers. I mean, 260 odd people have died. The percentage is small compared to our population. We built a state-of-the-art hospital in Harrison's Point for victims of COVID, and that too was a tremendous act of foresight on the part of the Prime Minister of Barbados and the Minister of Health, Honorable Jeffrey Bostic, who I give credit to as he retires from elective politics in a few days' time. In addition to all of this, we had to manage the ash fall from St. Vincent. I couldn't believe it. The Saturday morning, I wake up and I look outside, and bare ash, it real dark. And as the morning goes on, 9 o'clock, 9:30, 10, outside real dark still. Well, I couldn't understand. I mean, the last time the volcano in St. Vincent blew up, I think it was in the late 1979 or 1978. It wasn't like that. We have had to deal with that. A hurricane. Never before in my lifetime was there a hurricane that directly hit Barbados. Elsa, few months ago, that happens. Again, millions of dollars in damage, including houses which we are repairing. A house in Aston Hall, for instance, that started to be repaired 2 weeks ago. And then a freak storm just before the hurricane, the week before, 46,000 flashes of lightning in an hour and a half. Houses damaged too. This government, of which I'm a part, has gone through issues that no previous government has. We've faced it. As George said, we've tackled it. And we are still surviving. We are still doing well. We haven't gone through the 25 successive downgrades economically that the last government has. Our debt is lower than it was when the Dems demitted office. Our debt to GDP is lower. And we have done magnificently well under the circumstances of these natural disasters. We've employed almost 5,000 people since COVID in various jobs, cleaning up the ash. The ash gone, but we're still employing the workers. And the Prime Minister has committed to continue their employment. We hired 720 people at the NCC, cleaning up Barbados and making it more beautiful. All the bush that is in Barbados that we know about. And constituents regularly call me to ask me about bush being cleared up, and we send a team to clear it up. We've improved drainage in this country, and indeed in this constituency. You all know that the Whim Gully, just a stone's throw away, was the source of disaster in many areas, with water coming from Sailor Gully and above, through the Whim down to St. Peter. And we have largely been able to avoid that. Certainly when I was minister in charge of disaster relief and preparation and mitigation, there was no problem whatsoever with the Whim, because in fact 2 weeks after we won government and I was Minister of Home Affairs, the then Minister of Environment, Trevor Prescott, and I and teams from various government departments came down and cleared the Whim, and I continued to make sure that the Whim was clear of debris and trees, etc., that could cause trouble. We employed people in the National Assistance Board to look after the elderly in the COVID monitoring units, school monitors, still being paid even though there's no school, still being paid. Last month, we voted $17 million in Parliament to pay the national insurance of all these workers as well. This is what this government has done to buttress this economy and this society, and to serve as protection for the people by giving them jobs, because we know that, as I said, thousands of people were laid off from the hospitality or entertainment industry, and therefore we created jobs and income for the people. All of this in a situation where we lost revenue, foreign exchange, because of the lack of capacity of tourists coming to Barbados. Only recently our tourism has started to come back to any levels anywhere near it was before 2020. So this is a government that has done its best, that has been resilient, that has worked hard morning, noon and night, led by Mia Motley, who is internationally acclaimed, let's face fact, recognized as the leader, perhaps of small island developing states throughout the world, certainly as the leader of vulnerable states that are vulnerable to climate change. And I don't have to speak. Every time she makes a speech in an international forum, whether it's in the UN or COP26, highly acclaimed and recognized as an outstanding leader. The other side has no one to compare, no one of the experience, the vision, the capacity, the desire to move Barbados and transform its people. And it's like really and truly a clear choice as who should be leader of Barbados, who should continue as the leader of Barbados after the 26th of January. Here in St. James North, we of course, have plans to continue to create jobs, to facilitate the creation of jobs. We were to have another Life and Work Skills program starting in September. Regrettably, we couldn't have it because that is when the COVID numbers started to spiral. But we had about 60 young people ready and willing to go on this course. I still hope that I could start it soon again because it gives young people the real opportunity. The record has been that about 75% of the graduates from that course find a job within 2 months of the graduation. As I said, we have to improve the roads. We have to rationalize this Zone 1 situation, which pertains to not only the Whim, but this whole box and Aston Hall, whereby you're not allowed to construct or install indoor waterborne facilities unless your house was built before 1974. So one of the last acts of Parliament before it was dissolved last month was for us to lay legislation which would address this issue of prohibitions against development in Zone 1 areas. Of course, it means that that legislation would have died on the dissolution in Parliament, but we certainly have every intention to bring it back before Parliament once re-elected in the shortest possible time, because this is important to the people, as I said, not only of the Whim and Aston, but in other parts of St. James as well, Rotdunda. And this is part of the development of the people. So the Prime Minister has committed herself to eliminating pit toilets and outdoor toilet facilities by 2027, and we will see this through. Of course, as I said, we have to improve the road structure. We will continue to improve the drainage structure in this constituency, and I will be with you in terms of obviously improving the literacy of our young people. That is key as well. And of course, people with disabilities. Our manifesto, which was launched yesterday, speaks to the establishment of a commission to improve the lives of people with disabilities in terms of strategies and programs and indeed legislation, which is long overdue. You all have people within this community who have physical disabilities and disabilities affecting their mind. And, you know, I look forward to the establishment of that commission, because a society is only as strong as its weakest link. A government has as one of its primary duties the duty to look after and improve the lives of its most vulnerable people and to allow them to fulfill their full potential. And that is what I'm into politics about being and being a part of. Our government has, in 3 years, 8 months, done its best. We immediately, on coming into office, gave the public servants, of which some are in this district, some are in this box with Aston Hall, a 5% increase in salary, which they had not got for 9 years previously. We increased the non-contributory pension. In other words, people who didn't contribute to a pension, but government still paying you. All right, increase that from $155 every 2 weeks to $225, almost a 50% increase. Okay, because we realized that elderly people who served in this country have to be supported by the state in terms of social security, even if they did not contribute enough payments to the National Insurance Scheme or did not contribute at all. We reinstituted government funding of tuition fees of University of the West Indies students. Extremely important, because people in the Whim Your grandchildren and children must be able and must be given the opportunity to go to the University of the West Indies, like any of the politicians in the Democratic Labour Party, the ministers who voted to make your children pay $7,000 a year, $10,000 a year in some cases, to go to the University of the West Indies. I regard that as, out of all the sins that the Democratic Labour Party committed against the people of Barbados in the 10 years, 3 months that they occupied office between 2008 and 2018, I regard that as perhaps the greatest sin. It is like when Brutus stabbed Caesar, and Caesar was shocked to then know that Brutus was part of the conspiracy against him, and he said, "Hey, true Brutus," he couldn't believe it. And he then decided, boy, it ain't worth fighting, let me collapse and go along and dead. That is what the people, the Democratic Labour Party, did to you. After boasting about how they brought in free education and all of that, and yes, their founding leader, who we made a national hero, Errol Barrow, would have been primary in terms of the establishment and institution of the University of the West Indies at Cave Hill in the early 1960s, and free university education. That is what they did. We immediately, on coming into office 6 weeks after, reinstituted government funding of tuition fees so that your children, no matter, even if they couldn't afford it, could go to the University of the West Indies. And we had the first set of students graduating from that program, from that facility, a couple months ago. That is what a caring government does. Okay, I myself had to fund some students in St. James North so that they could continue at university, because I cried. I said, look, you have 1 more year. 1 more year. You can't drop out now after coming so far. Let me help you pay these fees. Okay, and that's what I did. That's what the foundation of which I am part did. Had to do, you feel obliged to do it. But yes, many students, hundreds across Barbados, dropped out of University of the West Indies. George Braffett, who you heard just before me tonight, and I thank George. George and I know each other. We go back about 55 years now. 1967, primary school together, and I'm proud of George, and he's a university lecturer, so he knows what I'm speaking about. He would have seen it firsthand. The Democratic Labour Party has not apologized to you for what it did in almost destroying this country, of undermining totally the fundamentals of the economy and society of this country. And they feel that what they did was right. Their leadership, the present president, I should say, but she will not be president in 2 weeks' time, effectively, when she loses in St. Lucie. They will remove her, believe you me. But she has, before last election, she said they were right to remove the tuition fees funded by the government. You know, they're right, let poor people pay for the children to go to school, that they got too much emphasis on going to university, and there should be more emphasis on technical skills or some foolish statement like that, like if the two are separate and distinct. Like if you fund University of the West Indies education, you can't fund the Polytechnic too, and the skills training programs. I completely reject that kind of notion. They have not apologized to you, you know. I mean, let's talk straight, let's converse. I mean, look, we men are imperfect, right? Men are not perfect, and sometimes a man might err. He might not treat his woman as well as he ought to treat, with total respect. But you apologize, and more often than not, the women forgive them, right? If you keep on doing the same thing, you gotta let him die the truth. But man, look, we ain't perfect. We here once, apologize, plead with you, beg back, and be back together again. That's why I don't get into no man-woman relationships. I stopped doing divorce law about 20 years ago. I don't know if Jamila, and I thank Jamila, of course, for her chairmanship here tonight as well, young, bright lawyer. Don't know if she does divorce law, but I stopped that because I don't get in a man-woman relationship. But the Dems have not even apologized to you for the nonsense that they did, for making this country the third most indebted country in the world, for the university or the education paying fees, for all the taxes they had on you, the NSRL tax which we removed on coming into office, okay, for not giving you increase in salary as public servants, for the corruption and corrupt practices that pervaded the governance of this country over that period of time, for the destruction of the economy and the 6 different economic plans that they brought, and for the 24 successive downgrades of the economy, which of course led to downgrades in society too. They feel they did the right thing. And to compound it, they're running 4 of their worst elements at ministerial level this election. So what does that tell you? When they bring back 4 of the worst elements in terms of ministerial governance, they're telling you that these fellas did well, and they therefore have to reject them. They have to take another term in opposition. We in the Barbados Labour Party, we also, of course, brought a fleet of buses. I think it was about 35 buses, electric buses, sweet. A few months ago, a Saturday afternoon, in fact, it was my birthday weekend, you know, my wife, our granddaughter, we took her, all right. I think that was the first time she ever went on a bus, caught a bus down here, Spikestown, and went to Bassiba. And I was so impressed with these buses. Drive real sweet. Space for people with disabilities, mobilities, to comfortably sit. We bought 35 of them when the last government could not find it fit to buy one. Not one. And public transport, and y'all would know that public transport here in the Whim was bad, and in the north of the country, okay? And we solved that problem. You don't hear about public transport being difficult now. Garbage trucks, you know that sometimes under the last government, 3 weeks gone and your garbage not collected. People calling me every day, Mr. Hinkson, my garbage ain't get collect in the Whim, in Upper Carlton, Roadview. And I got to call somebody at SSA, man, what happened, man? I know things, you're under pressure, but you got to come and collect the garbage. And it ended up, in fact, I had to write the then Minister of Sanitation. I wrote him telling him this is nonsense. If something ain't done by next month, we can protest, right? And I wrote on behalf of all the northern parishes, St. Peter, St. Lucy, my colleagues in St. Thomas, St. Andrew, St. Joseph, and St. James, of course, to try to improve the garbage collection, which was a disaster. We have bought garbage trucks, a fleet of garbage trucks, not only garbage trucks, new garbage trucks that can, with retrofitting, to put the garbage on and to dump it. And this community, of course, and other parts of St. James North and St. Peter were among the first to get the new garbage bins. All right, that is where you can, in fact, separate your garbage, disposables and the plastics, etc., the garbage bins, as you know, coming in different parts. All of that we did. We cleaned up the storage on the South Coast. Storage, I mean, an absolute disgrace. It was like if we were a banana republic. That a government, after 2 years, the Democratic Labour Party, unable to solve a storage problem in the streets. So people closing down the business and tourists not coming and staying on the South Coast because of garbage, because of storage. And within 6 months, we cleared that up. 6 months of a government showing that it could have been done. Just if you care and you have the commitment and resolution to do it. And these are the same people, the Democratic Labour Party, that tell you how they won't come back and vote for a strong opposition. Well, they ain't saying about vote for a government. So they work out long time, they can't win the government. When they introduce their leader, they don't say, as you would normally say, next Prime Minister of Barbados. None of them saying that. In fact, the men looking to cut off her head, as I said, in 2 weeks' time. All right, and hoping to hold one seat that they could try and form, they could be leader of the opposition. But I totally reject the notion that you vote for a strong opposition. Nobody votes for any strong opposition. You vote for a government. Opposition can't do nothing for you. Why serve as an opposition MP for 5 years, 3 months, and all I used to be doing was writing letters to various ministers of government. Nothing being done. They ain't doing a thing. They ain't taking me on. Traffic lights at Westmoreland Junction, you know, had to wait until 2 years ago, 15 months ago, to get the traffic lights because the two ministers of public works and the Dems telling me they had no money to do it. But traffic lights now at Westmoreland. All right? So an opposition would sort out itself. You vote for a government, not any opposition. And in fact, if an effective party can be effective, whether it has seats in government, in parliament or not, and opposition, everybody accepts, don't we, that there should be integrity in public life legislation. So that if a politician who you know don't have no money, because before he became a minister of government, he was scranting about, driving an old vehicle, you know he having difficulty paying the mortgage, he owe Courts, he owes Simpsons for the car, and suddenly after 3 years as minister, you see him driving about a BMW 5 Series, $400,000 cost, you see that he got a yacht. Now I can tell you, I was a minister, ministerial salary can't do that, it ain't big, believe you me. And I think that we all accept that someone in that position come into politics, submerged to the top, right, as a minister, but after 3-4 years clearly living ostensibly in luxury, may even have a big mansion down Ruby, St. Philip, big mansion that you see, you pass and it's like a castle or a palace, right? And you wonder how these people get this kind of money off of this ministerial salary. So you don't feel that they should have legislation that you should be able to bring that kind of politician before the law courts, and if found guilty, lock them up? Y'all don't feel so? Because they're locking up somebody in Western that steal 2 tins of sardines because they're hungry, to lock them up and bring them before the courts too? So they should be able to lock up politicians too. You don't think so? So we bring up Integrity in Public Life Act. It passes the elected parliament, the lower house. I vote to pass it. Mayor Motley, Attorney General, Colin Jordan are out there. People who you elect pass this legislation. Say we bringing this in. Don't mind we in office, right? Because we telling you we not going to do foolishness and take bribes and corrupt practices. And then a lower house, upper house, sorry, unelected parliament, all right? Opposition senators, 2 of them, and then some who nominated by Her Excellency, because you need a 2/3 majority because it's a constitutional change. And they vote to defeat the Integrity in Public Life Act. So that is what an opposition does, and the Democratic Labour Party agreed with them. So today, as we speak, you don't have Integrity in Public Life Act legislation. We have the Prevention of Corruption Act legislation, all right, which was proclaimed in September 3-4 months ago to replace a century-old Prevention of Corruption Act that Frondou said was adequate for Barbados. Believe you me, he knows that it was not adequate because you had to bring a prosecution within 6 months, and you only get a fine. You only get a fine for $24. So we passed that. We are committed to passing freedom of information legislation. We will bring back the integrity in public life legislation as well. And we need the opportunity to continue. We have a housing program earmarked. We know that housing is a very big challenge in this country. A lot of people want housing, their own property, and rightly so. And we have embarked on that. We've already started to build houses at Lancaster through the Hope Inc. And the government can't do it alone, so we're doing it through Hope Inc. facilitating housing. We'll have some in St. Lucie, some in St. John, some in St. Philip. We'll be giving back $3,000, giving grants of $3,000 to first-time homeowners that if they could either pay in legal fees or deposit towards the purchase price or mortgage installments, maybe 3 months payment to mortgage. All of that we're doing. We're committed to transforming this country in terms of housing, which is definitely required. We have transformed vending legislation, because you all have vendors here in the Whim, in Aston, Roadview, and you know that it was ridiculous. From 1695, 330 years, black people vending could get locked up because they don't have police permission. Nonsense, nonsense. We revolutionized that and brought in new vending legislation. We've made it easier for people to get permits when they want to hold a session, a fete, rather than go and stand up before a law court in hot sun for a whole day just to pay $100 to get a license. We reformed that. We brought in the trust fund, like I said, to whereby young entrepreneurs can be given a start, a heads up for their trust companies, for their businesses. And we need the opportunity to continue in this vein, in service to the people of this country. I need the opportunity to continue to serve you, to do good by you, to improve the road network, to have a new fish market at the Millie Eiffel Fish Market in Weston, for instance. All of that we have in terms of our plans for this community, for this country, for this constituency. And, you know, the Democrat, let's face fact. I will wind up by saying that the Democratic Labour Party does not care about the people of St. James North. Let's face fact. For 9 years, since I was the Member of Parliament of this parish, there has been absolutely no Democratic Labour Party presence in this parish. I would have loved that the Democratic Labour Party could have helped me in terms of giving food vouchers to people, in terms of getting jobs for people in the private sector and the public service, as I have done. Would have helped in terms of developing the young people of this constituency. An absolute and dismal and disgraceful absence of Democratic Labour Party forces in this constituency. Even now, the candidate that they're running, people who were top supporters of the Democratic Labour Party don't know him. Asking me who running for the Dems. Believe he's come up here saying that he's relative of some people, of some of you all with his surname, but you all don't know him. Don't know where he's from. He has no association with St. James North. Never did anything for anybody in St. James North or in Barbados, to my certain knowledge, to improve. Yeah? And you can't enter politics without a track record of service to the people of Barbados. So I urge all of you on the 19th to go to the polling station and vote for me to be re-elected as your Member of Parliament. I know that some of you all are thinking of not voting, COVID and all of that. Look, we're going to protect you as we have always done. As you see here, it is safe with the Barbados Labour Party. There's going to be social distancing at the polls, hand sanitizing. We're going to make sure you don't catch COVID. All right? But you have to go and vote. This is the opportunity, another opportunity to be involved in your future and in your governance. And it is no use saying, look, Edmund Hinkson going to win. He don't need my vote. Barbados Labour Party going to win. Mia Motley going to win. Look, when on 6 o'clock on election day, not one vote in those ballot boxes yet. Not one. Votes now got to go in. Edmund Hinkson ain't win no election until the votes count that night, and I have the majority of votes cast. I have full confidence in the people of the Whim to do the right thing. You all are wise people. I love you all. I love your community. It has been a distinct honor to meet you all. And, you know, I don't regard it as just a political relationship that I hold, and I regard it as a social relationship as people. And I thank you all for having let me into your homes, let me into your lives, to be part of your lives. And I am urging you all to give me the opportunity to continue in that vein by re-electing me as your Member of Parliament, so that the Barbados Labour Party can continue to be the government that it has been, in service to the people of this country. I'm obliged to you.
Be ready for elections and be voting Edmund Hinkson. Elections when we reach at the poll. By Edmund Hinkson we placing VX. There we go, there we go. Edmund Hinkson be voting in the best. When we reach by the poll. By Edmund Hinkson we placing VX. There we go, there we go. Edmund Hinkson we voting in the best. Oh yes, cast your X. We voting Edmund Hinkson, yes. Oh yes, cast your X. We ready for election, yes. Oh yes, cast your X. We voting Edmund Hinkson, yes. Oh yes, oh yes, oh yes, oh yes. But I never see a man for the people so yet. Willing to put in hard work and sweat. Be full of integrity against corruption in the party. Develop the truth, developing the youth.
St. James North, the Whim, by now it should be clear as to why you should vote for Edmund Hinkson and the Barbados Labour Party. They are the epitome of service. They're ever focused and committed to making our lives safer, better, brighter. So go out in your numbers on January 19th, 2022. Stay the course. Help Edmund Hinkson, Mia Motley, and the Barbados Labour Party team to continue to transform and revolutionize our great nation. Do not leave it to chance. Do not stay home and believe the bees got that. The only way we're going to get the vote is if you come out and vote. Do not leave your lives to chance. Do not leave your children's lives to chance. Do not leave your family's life to chance, because we already know where we will be. So vote for Edmund Hinkson, vote for Mia Motley, and vote for the Barbados Labour Party. I thank you for coming out tonight, everyone here in the Whim and those streaming online. Good night, and thank you. God bless.
Don't dare and let me get the X. Oh, you know BLP is the best.